It's just shameful seeing so many good men being beaten down, torn down by this sick society. I want to take you guys back to a story around 5 to 6 years ago. It was when my little brother was in community college, and at the time he originally wanted to get into a business major. And he was taking a class in regards to business, and he had told one of the professors, female professor, which I suppose perhaps is besides the point, but he had told her that he wanted to go to a certain university transferring out of community college, and it was a pretty prestigious business school. And what she had told him was, you have a better chance, a likelier chance to get struck by lightning than to get into that business school. Now, when I heard that back then, I was very upset. No one in that kind of position, she should have never made a statement like that. These are the people who are supposed to bring up the youth in our country, the guiders, if you want to call them. And this is the way they're going about their business. I've heard of other stuff like this too. I made a previous video about my experience with public school. I don't need to repeat the points from that, but I've seen it time and time and time again. A lot of young men, boys, young adults, whatever you want to call them, through K through 12, college, community college, are having to be around these kind of toxic people that are just tearing them down, that do not have their best interests. Anyone who would make a statement like that does not have the best interest of their student. They just don't. And anyone who, because back then I was a lot more docile, passive, whatever you want to call it, don't let society gaslight you into thinking that there is something wrong with confronting things like this. Because there's a lot of people who will have that happen to them, and they'll just let it dwell in the back of their mind, or they might make a passive-aggressive social media post about it. They won't confront it then and there. If I was a parent, or if it was me, my brain, or whatever you want to call it, in my brother's body back then, best bet I would have said something to the professor. I would have told him how unprofessional her conduct is. I wouldn't have made a huge deal out of it, but I would have certainly let her know that. There's a lot of men who are just defeated right now. And I'm sick of seeing it. For anyone who has had someone like that tell you what you can and can't do, I don't care if it's benching 300, 400, 5 pounds. I don't care if it's learning another language. I don't care if it is getting a certain job or getting into a university. Do not let them bring you down. Do not let this sick society tear you down and tell you what you can and cannot do. I saw someone in the gym who had recently gotten hit by a bus, had a skin graft on their arm, and was in the gym working out. You're telling me you can't go and do 300, 400 pounds on bench if you train hard enough, eat properly, rest? You can do what you set your mind to. So when I heard this story, it was so upsetting. What's funny enough, what I told my brother in response, I said, okay, if that's how she feels, then hold a 10-foot metal pole, essentially meaning that just change the variables. Play the game based on your own accord. Do it to the best of your ability. And what I mean by that, of course, I'm going to get into this, but I'll touch on it earlier as well. With the stress and stuff like that of the economy and all that. Starting channels like this, things, we need to get creative. People aren't surviving right now. Men are not surviving right now. We're stressed out. They're overworked. They're, underpaid in a lot of cases. That's why you have to get creative, side hustles. And I'm not saying work 2, 3 jobs and never have, because again, at the end of the day, all the money in the world is not more important than the time you spend with your real friends and family. Money can't buy that. But you have to get creative. And that was the point I made to my brother. I said, so be it. Change variables. Do what you can to play the game on your own accord. And the second point I want to make is this big lack of humility that I see among men, among people, whatever you want to call it. People thinking that they are better than one another because they have a certain amount of money, or fake this, fake that, fake clout, whatever superficial thing it is. If you look at the Bible, Scripture, whether you're a believer or not, I think a lot of people will resonate with this message and see it as a good point about Scripture talking about eating with the meek, eating with people who, regardless of their upbringing, that it doesn't matter. How many kings and queens, billionaires, actors, actresses, moguls, this and that, have passed away, and all that material stuff does not go with them. The reason why I'm bringing this point up is because I had a conversation with a friend of mine, someone I respect, But he was telling me about someone who was kind of like a mentor to him. And I had asked him, I said, hey, I'd love to meet him one day. And he said that another friend wanted to meet him, and he declined that. Essentially saying that he's very exclusive. They don't even go to a lot of public spaces with a lot of other people. But to me, it almost sounded like that person was better than other people. Now, again, as someone who's very financially successful, but that's besides the point. But you shouldn't think you're better than anyone else. And the worst example I see from it is a lot of the music stuff, which again conflates what a real man should act like. A real man is not someone who lashes out, loses control, crashes out. Like what I said in the example of confrontation. You can be very stern. You can be very calm in confrontation. That doesn't mean have no emotional regulation and act like a nutcase. But what I see nowadays, a lot of the time that's pushed. You combine that with the high rate of single motherhood. You combine that with a lot of youth in America growing up resentful and confused and angry. They look to these figures, the people flaunting the expensive cars, expensive watches, expensive jewelry. That's not a real man. Having to flaunt and flex on people with material possessions is not a real man. That doesn't make a man at all. It's absolutely insane. Strip all that stuff off. Take the keys to the Ferrari. Take everything and put them in a room with a homeless person down the street, and they're going to be no different. You'll see they have a lot more in common than you think. God forbid you see those people on the street. That could happen to them. It could happen to any one of us. God forbid. I don't get this whole thing with people thinking they're better. And look, if you do have those things, if you're someone who does have those things, try to uplift the people. Try to show them how you can achieve those things. Don't use it to flex on them and look down at people. Think, oh, well, I'm too exclusive. My time is, I'm not going to meet with this person. I'm not going to go to the place that these people go. It's ridiculous. And even with that, a lot of the time, you have people who get this confused too, thinking that the loudest one in the room is the most masculine, this kind of stuff. But from what I've seen in my life, and I think a lot of you guys have probably heard this, the people who are the loudest are not the ones that you should ever be afraid of. The people who talk the most do the least in practice, from my experience. Even not to segue, I guess, into something completely different. But I've talked about in previous videos that I've trained jiu-jitsu for some time now. And I was visiting an open mat at another gym, I don't want to get too nerdy here with the jiu-jitsu stuff, but essentially just out of kind of respect and etiquette, when you're visiting another gym, you don't want to go 100%. You're not there to prove a point. You're not there to challenge the people there. That's not very respectful. But I was rolling with someone who I actually know personally, and they were recording the round, which I don't really mind at all. They can record it. I don't care. But I saw that they had posted on their Instagram story a couple days after, a snippet of them rolling with me. A part where they got the dominant position. And again, not to get too nerdy here, but they were someone who was a lot less experienced. And usually when you're rolling with someone, when you're training with someone who's less experienced, you kind of let them work. You let them get some dominant positions and stuff like that. You're not going to get anything out of just destroying them because you've been training for 4 times, 5 times as long as them, or 200 something pounds, and they're 180 pounds. But I saw that, and again, I wasn't surprised because I see that so much nowadays. But I wasn't even mad. I was just like, cool. Like, that's pretty lame, to be honest with you. If that's how people need to feel better about themselves with their ego and act like they're tough or big shots or like they're so talented. But the point with this is that it's all fake. It's all very fake. And the thing I want you guys to kind of, I guess, notice with these kind of traits that I brought up, notice that these are not masculine traits. None of them. None of them. And when good men are being so beaten down by society, that's what you're going to have. People thinking that acting like this is good, acceptable. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, you do see that behavior rewarded. Something that always kind of bothered me is the whole thing with nice guys finish last, this kind of stuff. And I understand something. There's a difference between being a good person and being someone who is passive and weak and gets walked all over and has no self-respect. Those are two completely different things that I think a lot of people, quite frankly, don't understand. So instead of picking one of the two, they go to an extreme and just act rude. They act disrespectful because they think that's masculine. They think that's what's going to get them, all the accolades and stuff like that. And I want to make something clear too for the women watching this, which I've looked at my analytics. I think I might have a 3 to 5% female audience. But understand something. If you have so many good men that are going to be getting disrespected like this, that are going to be feeling like crap in this society, who's going to be maintaining the infrastructure? Who's going to be keeping the power on? Who's going to be providing the protection and security in the home if you don't have real men? You see what I'm saying? I've seen a lot of times where wives will humiliate their husbands in front of their kids or in public settings. I've seen cases of single motherhood, I've touched on in previous videos, where they will talk terribly about their kid's biological father who's not in the home, making the kid think that the father's behavior is bad and they should not want to emulate that. And then they're taken from their mothers. If they don't have someone like an uncle or a grandfather, I wasn't blessed to have my grandfathers in my life when I was growing up. But that's besides the point. You guys see what I'm saying? Where in order to have any form of sustainability, you can't have good men keep on being disrespected like this. If it keeps happening, again, you're going to see the power grids go out. You're going to see less and less and less protection and security in the home. Infrastructure, which in the city I'm in, I mean, geez, it's already kind of falling apart. You're not going to see that getting maintained. So, and again, you just see a big lack of even masculine behavior now because they've really done a number on us. They've done a number on a lot of good men in society. Friendships are harder than ever to make now. If you can find a good friend of yours, keep them close. But I've seen a lot of cases where people will try to act like they're cool, and all this kind of stuff, like I've talked about previously. But you throw some money in the mix, some clout in the mix, something to do with women in the mix, and they'll show you their true colors. And I'll tell you something, if they do that, you should believe them the first time. That's another problem I see with men lacking self-respect. Being afraid to end toxic relationships, whether it's with women, friendships, whatever it might be. I see them afraid to put the foot down, afraid to say enough, afraid of confrontation. It's not going to be good for your well-being in the long run if you have those kind of negative, detrimental people in your life. It's just simply not. So, and of course, I'm not saying that you should be overly critical. That's something I've actually struggled with in my life too. With friends and people in general, is thinking, oh, well, they have one flaw and I'm done with them. But I'll tell you something. Don't let people gaslight you into that either, because you'll know. You'll know the difference between, a friend kind of friendly banter and someone being a hater. You'll know the difference. It's not very hard to find out. So, as always, guys, I appreciate you viewing. I know this was a little bit of an off-the-cuff kind of video, something that was on my mind. I was considering uploading the next day, but again, something that just kind of crossed my mind I wanted to talk about. And I also wanted to say that, this is still a newer kind of channel. I'm thankful for the growth I've had. But I'm going to see I've seen some comments with the background and stuff like that. Seeing kind of what I can do with lighting, maybe some videos outdoors, some videos in other spots. I might even consider doing more regular uploads for those of you that have watched this long in the video, I guess. I imagine you're probably more routine viewers. But perhaps more regular uploads. I currently upload, I think, every 3 to 4 days. And, as always, guys, I appreciate it, but I just do want to make this point that, us as men have so much stress right now. Even I was seeing something where a lot of Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom stores, they're shutting down because people can't afford to shop at those kind of places anymore. They're having to be very strict with their spendings. There's things out of your control, family, stuff like that. We don't need a society that beats us down, that tells us we're not good enough, that tells us we're in the wrong. Because there's a lot of people that are turning. And my friend Dev made a video on this, and it's true. A lot of people are they're switching to Team Villain. They're getting fed up. And I don't want that to happen. I want there to be good men in society, because that's what's going to uphold any form of order. If you have so many men that are done, who's going to keep these things running? Who's going to keep the power grid running? Who's going to do the roof when it's 30, 50 years and it's covered in moss and stuff like that? Who's going to clean the gutters? It's time we respect one another. It's time we respect the good, hard-working men of this country. It's been about time, quite frankly, guys. But as always, really appreciate you viewing the video. Like I touched on a bit earlier, might change a few things. I know some people like the background here too. Vintage furniture. I've seen some comments on that. So, like I said, might change it up. Do some car videos. Do some outdoors videos. Do some lighting stuff. I want to get those kind of bulbs that change colors. I thought those were always pretty cool. But like I said, just wanted to get a video up today, guys. And as always, appreciate you viewing. Hope you guys have a good one. Thank you.